1986, Harvard Business School. A student graduates in the top 5% of his class. He believed he was smarter than every system. He joined McKinsey and became the youngest partner in the firm. In 1990, he arrived at Enron, an obscure natural gas company in Houston. Within 10 years, he transformed it into the 7th largest corporation in America. His name is Jeffrey Skilling. He built an accounting system so complex that regulators could not understand it. He created a culture where the bottom 15% of employees were fired every year. In August 2001, he resigned suddenly. 3 months later, Enron declared bankruptcy. He had sold $60 million in shares before leaving. Under oath, he declared he had done nothing wrong. This is the story of the man who believed he was smarter than the regulatory system, built the largest corporate fraud in history, and never admitted having done anything wrong. Jeffrey Keith Skilling was born on November 25, 1953, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His father was a mechanical engineer who worked for a heavy machinery company in the industrial Midwest region. The family moved frequently, following his father's professional career through several states during his childhood years. Skilling was an exceptionally intelligent child who demonstrated remarkable analytical abilities from a very early age in school. He devoured complex mathematical books and scientific texts that other children of his age could not even begin to understand. He attended Southern Methodist University in Dallas, where he studied applied science and finance with extraordinary academic results. He graduated with high honors in 1975 and immediately joined a small banking firm in Houston as a junior analyst. By 1979, he had been accepted at Harvard Business School, one of the most prestigious institutions in the world. At Harvard, he developed his fundamental belief that abstract intelligence and analytical capacity were superior to any practical experience. He graduated in 1979 in the top 5% of his class with an MBA degree from the most elite business school. He immediately joined McKinsey & Company, the most prestigious management consulting firm in the entire United States at that time. McKinsey was the cathedral of corporate intelligence, where Skilling found his ideological home for the next decade of his career. He worked obsessively, sometimes 100 hours per week, building a reputation as an exceptionally brilliant strategic consultant. By 1985, he had become the youngest partner in the entire history of the consulting firm itself. Skilling consulted for major energy companies across the country during this period of his McKinsey professional career. In 1987, he met Ken Lay, the chief executive officer of an obscure natural gas pipeline company called Enron. Lay was an economist with political connections who had built Enron through corporate mergers in the deregulated gas market. Lay needed someone brilliant to transform his traditional pipeline business into something modern, financial, and extraordinarily profitable. In 1990, Skilling joined Enron officially as the head of a new internal trading division called Enron Finance. His revolutionary vision was completely different from anything the energy industry had ever seen before in its modern history. He proposed transforming Enron from a traditional gas pipeline company into a financial trading firm specialized in energy contracts. This conceptual transformation was genuinely brilliant and intellectually audacious in ways nobody else in the industry had even considered. Skilling argued that gas itself was just a commodity, but contracts on future gas could be traded like sophisticated financial instruments. He created the very first natural gas futures market, where companies could buy and sell long-term energy supply contracts. In 1992 came the absolutely critical decision that would later define everything that came afterward in the story of Enron. Skilling personally requested permission from the SEC to use mark-to-market accounting for the company's long-term energy contracts. Mark-to-market meant that Enron could report future expected profits from a contract as if they had been earned immediately today. If Enron signed a 20-year contract today, it could record all 20 years of projected profits as current quarter earnings. The SEC granted permission in January 1992, making Enron the first non-financial company to use this accounting method legally. This decision would prove to be the original sin from which everything else would eventually flow in the next decade. By 1996, Skilling had been promoted to President and Chief Operating Officer of the entire Enron Corporation. He implemented his famous management philosophy, known internally as rank and yank, across the whole company structure. Every year, every employee was rigorously evaluated, and the bottom 15% of performers were immediately fired without exception. The system created a culture of internal fear, where no employee dared question executive decisions or financial reporting methods. Skilling believed that this constant, ruthless evaluation produced excellence and maintained intellectual sharpness throughout the entire corporation continuously. But internally, the system produced something completely different: a population of executives who were experts at appearing brilliant rather than being brilliant. In 1998, Skilling hired Andrew Fastow as Chief Financial Officer of Enron, completing the architecture of what would come next. Andrew Fastow was the perfect financial engineer for what Skilling needed at the next stage of Enron expansion. Fastow created hundreds of complex financial entities, called special purpose entities, designed specifically to hide debt and obligations. These entities had memorable names like Chuco, LJM Cayman, LJM2, and Raptor, all referencing Star Wars and pop culture deliberately. Each entity was designed to absorb losses or debt from the main Enron balance sheet without showing them publicly. Fastow personally managed several of these entities while also being Chief Financial Officer of Enron itself. This represented an obvious and severe conflict of interest that Skilling personally approved and signed off on. Fastow earned approximately $45 million in personal compensation from these entities, while still being Enron CFO. Between 1999 and 2001, Enron's stock price tripled in value, going from approximately $30 to $90 per share. Skilling and Lay were celebrated publicly as visionaries who had reinvented the modern corporation for the new economy. Enron was named the most innovative company in America by Fortune magazine 6 years consecutively running. The company expanded aggressively into trading of broadband internet capacity, water rights, weather derivatives, and other exotic markets. But internally, most of these new ventures lost massive amounts of money that were systematically hidden through Fastow special entities. In 2000, Enron deliberately manipulated the California energy market, causing rolling blackouts across the entire state during summer. Internal recordings showed traders openly celebrating when grandmothers died of heat exhaustion during the California energy crisis. Skilling continued publicly defending Enron with absolute intellectual confidence in every interview and quarterly conference call. He believed completely that his accounting was technically legal because regulators had approved it years before in 1992. He genuinely did not see what he was doing as fraud. He saw it as superior intelligence applied to existing rules. By early 2001, Enron was reporting record profits while internally hemorrhaging billions in concealed losses. The company stock reached its all-time peak of $90 per share in August 2000, with market capitalization over $70 billion. Wall Street analysts universally rated Enron as a strong buy recommendation, while Enron internally was already structurally broken. But Skilling could see the internal numbers more clearly than anyone else, and what he saw began to concern him deeply. In the spring of 2001, Skilling began progressively selling large quantities of his personal Enron stock holdings. Between February and August, he sold approximately $60 million in personal Enron shares completely legally. On August 14, 2001, Skilling resigned unexpectedly as chief executive officer, citing only vague personal reasons. The financial press was stunned because Skilling had become CEO only 6 months earlier, in February of that same year. Ken Lay returned as CEO and continued publicly defending Enron with absolute confidence about the company's future prospects. But internally, Sharon Watkins, a vice president, wrote a now famous memorandum warning Lay about accounting irregularities. She specifically warned that Enron could implode in a wave of accounting scandals if these matters were not addressed quickly. Lay essentially ignored the warning and continued reassuring employees and investors that everything was fundamentally fine. On October 16, 2001, Enron reported a $618 million quarterly loss publicly. More critically, the company reduced shareholder equity by $1.2 billion due to corrections of accounting errors. Wall Street panicked because nobody understood what these corrections meant or how many more might be coming. The SEC announced a formal investigation against Enron on October 22nd, accelerating the public collapse dramatically. Enron stock fell from $30 to less than $1 in a matter of weeks during November 2001. On December 2, 2001, Enron officially filed for bankruptcy, the largest corporate bankruptcy in American history at that time. 20,000 employees lost their jobs immediately, and almost everyone lost their entire retirement savings invested in stock. The pension fund of Enron employees lost approximately $2 billion in personal retirement savings completely overnight. Skilling had sold 60 million in shares months before the collapse, while employees lost everything they had saved. Arthur Andersen, the prestigious accounting firm that had audited Enron for years, also collapsed completely under public scandal. 85,000 additional employees lost their jobs when Arthur Andersen dissolved as a direct consequence of the Enron scandal. The criminal investigation against Skilling began formally in early 2002 and lasted approximately 4 years until trial. He was formally charged with 35 counts including fraud, conspiracy, insider trading, and making false statements to auditors. The criminal trial began in Houston on January 30th, 2006 in federal court before a jury of 12 citizens. Throughout the entire trial, Skilling maintained an absolutely consistent posture of complete personal innocence with intellectual conviction. He testified for over a week, defending his decisions with the same intellectual confidence he had shown for decades publicly. He genuinely believed that his accounting practices had been technically legal, because the SEC had approved them in 1992 originally. He saw himself not as a fraudster, but as a brilliant innovator, victimized by people who could not understand his complex creation. On May 25, 2006, the jury found him guilty on 19 of the 35 federal counts formally filed. He was sentenced to 24 years and 4 months in federal prison, one of the longest sentences ever for corporate fraud in history. Ken Lay was also convicted, but died of a heart attack in July 2006 before being sentenced formally by the court. Andrew Fastow had cooperated with prosecutors and received only a 6-year sentence in exchange for his testimony against Skilling. Skilling served 12 years in federal prison and was finally released on February 22, 2019, to a halfway house. He emerged from prison still maintaining that he had done nothing fundamentally wrong from a legal perspective. The first lesson is about how intellectual certainty can transform conscious fraud into perceived superior intelligence application. The second lesson is about how complex systems deliberately designed to be incomprehensible can hide catastrophic decisions for years from regulators. The third lesson is the hardest one. Some people genuinely believe their intelligence places them above the rules that apply to everyone else. This is the story of the man who believed he was smarter than the system, built the largest corporate fraud in modern history, and never admitted wrongdoing. If you choose to witness their stories, subscribe to Rise and Ruin. Next, we follow another empire from glory to dust.